Hello, Clockwork Peon here. With this video, I think I want to dig into the question of home ownership versus renting. I know a lot of people are thinking about what they want to do in terms of living situation. Should you rent? Should you buy? And I know there's a lot of mixed opinions on that. And I definitely am one in the camp of home ownership is the way to go over renting for several reasons, a handful of reasons actually. And I understand too that there's a lot of myths out there regarding this, and certainly there's a lot of things you'll see online or calculations of it. I recently found out about the 5% rule, which really kind of indicates the amount of house you can get versus the amount of renting space you can get in terms of square footage, where you take the 5% of the cost, multiply or divide by 12, and on and on and on. And I don't really want to do a whole math equation, and granted, it's simple math, but understand the math to the financial picture is only one particular aspect of that. For many cases, in many people's situations, while the math is good, it's not going to tell you everything about someone's specific set of circumstances. Case in point, thinking about this, one of the big things people will tell you with renting is you avoid cost such as maintenance cost, having to replace the roof. You avoid a lot of the homeowner costs, such as homeowners insurance. You're avoiding property tax. You're avoiding some liability. You don't necessarily have to mow your lawn. You don't have to shovel snow. And these are certainly responsibilities and costs that do come with home ownership. For instance, something may break. You may have a water heater go out. You may have an appliance, a washer and dryer go out. And with renting, many times you're going to have a maintenance person or someone who is hired by that company who will be responsible for going in and fixing those things, and they'll eat the cost of that. In renting, you're essentially paying for the cost of rent, plus utilities and maybe water too. So those are common arguments in favor of renting, and I agree. A lot of those things are true. But one of the big reasons I promote home ownership for, in all reality, I would say 90% of the people out there in their situations, even if you are in a job where you're going to be able to or need to move within a year or two for your job, home ownership for me is what I see the way to go for most people. Think about this. With home ownership, you are building equity, and I know that's a well-known thing. That's not any secret, right? You're building equity, whereas with renting, you're quote unquote throwing money away. But I do think there's definitely something to that whole thing, because why do you work 40, 50, 60 hours a week to give your money to a landlord? If you look at that, chances are that landlord, he or she, they may drive a nicer car than you. They may have a higher income. They may be more financially secure. And even if they're not, the thing is, you work for your money. You work a lot of hours. You sacrifice things. And the point being is, you don't do all of that. You don't take on the stress, the responsibility, and the time of work in order to give your money to somebody else. And again, with equity, I understand too. The argument says, well, you're paying so much of that in interest. You're giving it to a bank, and that is true. At the start of the loan, you absolutely are. But for those of you who do have a mortgage and a home, I challenge you to look at your amortization schedule. And what that does is show the relationship between the interest on your loan and the principal paid on your loan. And of course, as you pay more principal, the amount of interest that you pay to the bank it will go down to the point where you have higher equity in your home. And one of the big situations that not a lot of people address when it comes to the conversation of home ownership versus renting is the idea that your employment can potentially be very finicky, or it might not be on a set foundation. For instance, you could get laid off. I have a buddy who's just recently got laid off. He was making, a little over 50,000 a year, and granted, not a huge income, but certainly a sizable amount that you would not want to lose. And, if he was in a situation where he was renting and had to come up with, $1,000 in rent, 1,500, whatever the case may be, that could be a real problem. However, a lot of times, if you own your home, and certainly you can refinance and have ways to work around that. And certainly, if you have equity and if you can get your home paid off real fast, I would definitely recommend that. Even an extra $50 or $100 a month paying over on your mortgage will make a ton of difference. Because if you think about when you rent, you are only 1 or 2 months away from insolvency. You're only 1 or 2 months away from the street. And let's face it, we live in a time where a lot of people, they don't have quite the social safety networks that they've had in the past. For instance, we know now that over 50% of children are born out of wedlock. A lot of individuals, especially younger individuals, as they're coming of age, they might not always have a family or a social safety net to live in or to go live at their place. If they lose their job, find out that they come into financial hardship, that sort of thing. And with home ownership, certainly you can always work and to sell your home if you ever came into financial difficulty, and certainly you would want some of that equity. For instance, losing your job. Let's say if you have 20-30% equity in your home, well, that's certainly better than not having anything if you're renting. And this is one thing that I think when people get too worked up in the numbers that they don't always consider. And I'm one such person. I lost my income, my career of many years. I have recently lost that, and but our house is certainly paid off. So that's not something necessarily that is as big of a catastrophic event if I had not owned the home, if I had not paid off the mortgage or had been working to pay off the mortgage. If, say, for instance, someone who's making $100,000 a year, they get laid off from work, and let's say they're renting and they have a $2,000 per month rent, as opposed to maybe, say, a $2,000 a month mortgage. At least if they have been paying that much in mortgage, they should have some equity built up into their house, which gives them options. You have options. You can put it on the market. You can downsize. You can talk with your banker to see if there's any, I don't know, it wouldn't be loan forgiveness, but it might be a deferment. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for, like a loan deferment. So at the end of the day, we can run the math all you want, but I'm still a firm believer that one of the tenets of the American dream is home ownership, having something that is yours. If you think about historically, what has been the cause and spurn of so many battles and so many conflicts across the world and across history? It's been property. The idea of home ownership, land ownership, that sort of thing. So why do you want to be a serf? Why do you want to be subject and beholden to a landlord when you can actually own your own property? So I would definitely encourage people who are in their 20s and 30s to go out and look at home ownership. And certainly, as I speak now, it's February in 2024. Interest rates are a little higher than what they've recently been in the past decade or two, although historically they're really not high. 7% on a 30-year note is not historically a very high rate. However, home prices are also still high. I understand, there's certainly a shortage of homes out there, especially for people looking, who are making $50,000, $60,000, $40,000 even, who are maybe looking for that basic 1 or 2 bedroom home that's in the 700 to 900 square foot range. Those homes are not really being built anymore, and certainly a lot of them are being bought up by companies like BlackRock. A lot of them are being bought up by people who will go through these neighborhoods and just try to find rental properties of the 700, 800, 900 square foot homes. And certainly that's not anything that's helping first-time home buyers, but I would certainly not let that deter you from home ownership. And And it is important to try to save. Maybe rent for 6 months to a year and try to save up if you can, 1,000 a month, 500 a month, and then put that toward a down payment on your home. And so renting does have its place. And I think that place would be while you're just starting out, if you're trying to get, if you're trying to get a down payment because, you're not getting any equity in your rent. So maybe you're trying to save a little bit so that you can build equity in home ownership because, at the end of the day, ultimately the idea is to hopefully you can get to be debt free. So when things do happen, like I said, layoffs happen, people get fired, people have their job outsourced overseas. And I haven't even dabbled into some of the ideas with, medical emergencies. People could be on disability. People do have medical issues that come up. So at least with a home, you're not really having to be to the point where it feels like you're only 1 or 2 months away from crisis. And yes, property taxes can go up. Homeowners insurance can go up. But, if you get a 30-year, 15 fixed year note on your interest, chances are, while your monthly payments may fluctuate, they will likely go up a little bit over the course of several years. As we had seen, it's not anywhere near the rate that your comparable rental property would go up in terms of the increase in rent that your landlord can charge you over time. So, and this is kind of, is a sampling or just kind of dipping into the surface of this issue because it is a huge, huge issue. And again, for a lot of people, they might think, well, hey, for my job, I'm going to relocate. But again, do you truly know where you're going to be in a year from now and 2 years from now? You might be working with a company or you might be hired by a company where you think that you're going to be with them for many years, or maybe they tell you you're going to relocate. Things can change on the drop of a dime. You never know what life's going to bring. But what I will tell you for certain is that if you have equity in a home as opposed to zero equity in renting, those emergencies are going to be a lot less catastrophic for you. If you have a $200,000, $300,000 home, and you look at your statement, you look at your amortization schedule and say, well, at least I have $100,000 in equity. Well, that's going to help you quite a bit. So again, kind of if you're able to leave comments in the questions or leave questions in the comments. And, what are your thoughts on it? Am I wrong? Am I completely off? I'm more than welcome to reply. All 5 of you who are watching, of course, as they say, if you can reach one person. And by the way, this video is not sponsored by Smoky Row Coffee. They're in Des Moines, Pleasant Hill, and Pleasant Hill, Iowa. Not sponsored. 5 people watch my videos, so not going to get a lot of advertising revenue out of this. But those are my thoughts. Those are my viewpoints, my opinions. Could I be wrong? I could be. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. But I would say, again, for 90% of the people, get a home as soon as you can. Buy a home. Stop giving your money to a landlord. Thank you.